Good evening, everyone. Good to see you today. We're going to talk tonight about what's new in the New World. What's new in the New World? So, as we travel about, we're going to see some of these things. What the Europeans brought with them. So, first of all, we need to think about why the Europeans are coming to the New World. What drives them there? And so this is called the Columbian period because it's named after Columbus. And so about 1500, everything begins to change across the world, certainly Europe and into what we like to call the New World, because they're going for trade. So this is a real benchmark in history. And one of the things they're searching for, one of the main things they're looking for are spices. All kinds of spices. The spices had been coming from India and making their way across the Middle East, and then by ship to Venice, and then from there to Europe. But they figured out if they could find a way to get to those spices directly, then they could cut out the middleman and make a lot more money. And so around 1500 is when all that begins to happen for the Europeans. The real leaders in this are the Portuguese. The Portuguese had a school of navigation. The Portuguese were excellent shipbuilders. And really now, the Europeans are going to begin to see the ocean as a bridge rather than as a barrier. And actually, the countries that are near the water are going to prosper more than the ones that are in Central Europe. So, Columbus is on his search basically to get to India. Columbus wants to get to India because he wants to get to the spices. The Portuguese are already beginning to sail down and around Africa, and now Columbus is going to be trying to find a new route. He wants to get to the east by going west. Get to the east by going west. And so he begins to sail over this way. Here are some of the rudimentary maps that they begin to draw. Notice India is up here in the corner. And then they don't have much of a view of what the New World here is. Can they get through here? Can they go around it up to the north? Can they go around it this way? And they're going to try all those things. But Columbus will sail into this area looking for India, primarily looking for spices and the other things that they have there. So, soon we see many are going to be looking to this new land. Because even though they began to realize this was not India, it wasn't close to India, there are other things here that they could use, other things here they could exploit for their own purposes. So what's basically going to happen then between the New World, as they would call it, the New World and the Old World, the Western world of Europe, there's going to be cultural exchange. Anytime people come in contact with each other from different cultures, there is some kind of exchange of ideas, words, other things. We want to look at a few of those things now because we see that many of these ideas, changes are positive. Some of them are negative. Some are accidental, and some, in fact, are deliberate. But this has happened anytime two groups come into contact with each other. So today we're going to take a look then at these exchanges between the New World and the Old World, especially what the Europeans brought to the New World. Maybe later on we'll have another talk where we talk about what the Europeans got from the New World, but today let's look at this side. All right, so here's the map of Columbus's journeys. Sometimes people don't realize that Columbus made multiple journeys, okay? Multiple journeys. You can see he sails all over the place in different colors. You got blue and yellow and white. He is going all over. He's going to San Salvador, of course. That's where he started. But he goes around Cuba. He goes around what would be Haiti, Dominican Republic, down along the coast of Central America. He is trying to find a route to India. He never does. We believe, I believe that Columbus actually thought he had found a way to India. I don't know if he was just deluding himself, but I think he went to his grave thinking he had actually accomplished what he wanted to do. So what we see then, what this sort of graphic map is showing us, is a big exchange between North America, South America, and the Europe, the Old World and the New World. So take a look. You can see, of course, on the left, the things from the New World that will make their way to the Old World, like beans and cacao or chocolate, maize, peanuts, pineapples, pumpkins, potatoes, tobacco, turkeys even. And the other way, we see what's coming the other way. They're going to actually bring plants that will grow there from other parts of the world. For example, like bananas, onions, rice, sugarcane, wheat. They're also going to bring animals like cattle, chickens, and horses. So this is part of the cultural exchange. So here's just a little chart to make it easier to see. You know, there will be a quiz later, so be sure you're taking your notes. But we have beasts of burden that they bring from Europe to the New World. Animals for food, including pigs. We didn't mention them before. Pigs, goats, chickens. And then plants. Wheat, rice, onions, cabbage, bananas, grapes, peaches. These all came across with the Europeans from different parts of the world that had never been in North America, South America. And sugarcane, coffee. We often think of coffee being from South America or Central America. It certainly is grown there, but it is not originally from that area. It is originally from Arabia and East Africa. Technology, the arch. They did not have the arch in the New World, or the wheel, or iron production, or gunpowder. And then cultural items, new laws, the alphabet, and Christianity. Well, why would they bring these things? Well, as the Europeans are sailing across, one of the things they want to do is be able to establish settlements, have plenty of food to eat. And they're establishing these settlements, and these animals had proven themselves to be very useful back in Europe. Oxen to plow the field, horses to be able to pull wagons and transport people, cows to eat, pigs to eat, chickens to eat. So let's take a look. The beast of burden, horses, donkeys, oxen. This is going to revolutionize transportation in the New World. The only real animal that they had was the llama. They had the llama in South America. It was very effective up in the mountains, very high altitudes, but not that good for much of the area of the New World. And so a horse is going to transport you a lot faster. And we see then horses, donkeys, mules, oxen, they work harder, they are more efficient, and they can be used for military purposes, for transportation, for farming, all these ways. Now here is a picture I took in Central America a little while back, and they have them here. You see the kind of wagons they have. You see how they're using the oxen, and you might see something like this as we're traveling around. They paint very colorful carts here, and they have the animals pulling it. So this is very traditional. This is kind of there for the tourists, but this is showing the way it was done for many, many years. Now, what about the horse? The horse actually arrives with the Spanish, okay? With the Spanish. And you can see a very interesting map over here. We don't have time to go to all the details, but the horses come through the Caribbean into Mexico. They come up through Florida. Some of them are coming into the Carolinas. There are still wild horses that are out there, say on the outer banks of North Carolina and so forth, and up along the coastline of Virginia. You may have run into them. But Columbus shows up in 1492. Before that, there were no horses in North America. Pope Alexander VI had granted Spain the New World. Basically, quickly, this Portuguese and the Spanish are dividing up the world. But something happens. One of the Portuguese sailors actually gets blown off course, and he lands in what we would know as being Brazil today. And so this sets up the possibility that Spain and Portugal could go to war over this new land. So the Pope wanted to make sure that that didn't happen, and he called together a big meeting. A treaty was signed, the Treaty of Tordesillas, and from there, the world is basically divided in half, cutting off just the corner of Brazil, and this is why if you go to Brazil, they speak Portuguese. They don't speak Spanish, right? And then later on, they have to draw a line on the other side of the world when they actually get that far over around the Philippines. So, horses come in here, 1519 to Mexico. Hernan Cortez, brings 16 horses. Later, other horses are brought with them, and then eventually they escape, and they begin to breed in the wild, and we have wild herds of horses, mustangs, different things like that then are out all through the West. You can see it on the map here, that they will spread all around North America. Spanish ranchers will bring the livestock and work on this, and they're going to be what we call free-range horses. The horses just bred naturally, and then they would run wild, and then when they decided they wanted some, they would go out and round them up, and of course they'd have to break them so they could be ridden. But genetic testing shows that these horses of the west part of North America are related to the Iberian Peninsula, that is Spain primarily, and Portugal. So this also then gave opportunities for native people to take the horses and to take the livestock, and also wild herds developed as well. Well, animals for food. We had animals for beasts of burden. Here's animals for food. Cattle are brought. You can use them, of course, for their meat. You can milk them, get all kinds of dairy products. You have sheep and goats, which are going to be able to be raised in a lot of these terrains, and pigs and chickens. Pigs and chickens come in. Sheep were brought not only for meat, but to produce fiber. Of course, you take their wool, you can weave it into different textiles for clothes and other uses. Columbus brought cattle on his second journey. That's the first evidence we have of it there. And you can go back and check the Texas Longhorn actually have connections genetically to cattle in India, which of course has kind of been brought across Europe that way. So there we go. And here's pigs. We see that pigs are also very important. They are brought by the Spanish as well. In fact, they are brought in at the insistence of Queen Isabella. She ordered Columbus to bring 8 pigs in 1493 with him. And the idea here was, if you could eat them along the way, and of course, if you've got some left, you just turn them loose, because pigs take care of themselves. And down in Florida, where I live, we got lots of wild pigs down there. They're still down there. That date can date back. 13 pigs came into Tampa Bay, Florida in 1539. We now have, I can guarantee you, hundreds, thousands of them still in Florida today. Now, the Native Americans became quite fond of the pork, as maybe you are too, and they wanted these pigs. They would even attack to get these pigs, and they were eager to trade for them. So pigs quickly spread all around the New World, different Caribbean islands, different part of North America, South America even. And so the pig then, very handy food source for them, and very much a hardy animal that can survive on its own. You just turn it loose, and they go out and find their own food. Then later on, of course, you got to go and find them. And today, the wild boars down in Florida, you got to be very careful if you want to go try to find some of those. Now, here's one of my favorite animals, the chicken. The chicken. I like that. I like that picture of the chickens too. Very majestic. We see that chickens are a great source of food. Why? Well, one thing, they're easy to transport. You just pick up a chicken. You can pick up 2 chickens. You can put a chicken in a box and carry it. You can put it on a ship, put it on a little boat, put it on an outrigger. You can carry it with you, and along the way, it's going to produce for you eggs that you can eat. Then, of course, you can eat the chicken itself when you get ready. And here's the thing, before refrigeration, a chicken is a good thing to have. If you kill a pig to eat it, you're going to have to eat a lot of pig before it goes bad. Or you're going to have to do something to it. Or a cow. But a chicken, one family could easily eat up a chicken before it would go bad. And so this is why chickens have spread all across. Now, where did they begin? Many people point to Asia. Some people point to India. But then they spread around the world. People take them around the world because the chicken is just about the perfect animal to transport, take with you, to use for food sources. I remember on my grandmother's farm, she had chickens that would just run around out there. They would get very nervous if they saw a car coming up down the road, down the lane they didn't recognize, because they knew my grandmother would be coming out there to visit them for dinner. Well, why did the chicken cross the sea? Well, some debate about the appearance of them in America, but probably came with the Spanish. And it seems that chickens also might have been there a little bit earlier, as early as 1350, some people say, coming from the Polynesian islands. Well, these things are debated. The Incas certainly had chickens when Pizarro shows up, okay? Because he records the chickens being there. Genetic tests show that chickens, those chickens out of South America, are related to chickens in Samoa, the islands of Samoa out in the Pacific. The chickens spread across the Pacific from China. The chickens spread across the Atlantic from Europe. The chickens are everywhere. The North American chicken comes from Spain originally, and then from there, from the West. It seems like the South American chickens may have found their origin in the South Pacific Islands. But anyway, I like this chicken. He's on the ship, and he's keeping an eye out for what he can find. Now, also grains. Of course, in the New World, they have corn or maize, right? And they use that. That is their primary staple to eat. They make bread, tortillas, and things out of corn. But wheat is also very desirable and can be used to make tortillas, can be used to make other bread and other things like that. So new vegetables, particularly wheat and rice, come with the Europeans. They are planted, they are cultivated to make food available. Also, things like lettuce, onions, cabbage, grapes, olives. These are coming from the old world to the new world to add variety to their food. Coffee. Some people really like their coffee. They got to have their coffee. If you see them in the morning and they don't have their coffee, you really don't want to talk to them. But coffee does not come from, we think of that too as being grown in South America, but it originally came from Arabia and East Africa. In fact, into the Western world, it moves, actually when the Muslims flee from them attacking Vienna, the Ottomans, they left in a hurry, and they left behind sacks of coffee beans. And so this is why Vienna was the first place in Western Europe to have coffee and have coffee houses, much like they had in the Middle East. Well, large plantations, once they found out they could grow this stuff, because the climate, of course, of Europe will not allow you to grow coffee. But if you're in South America, Central America, the climate is there. And so they begin to grow it and raise it there, cultivate it there. So here's some pictures that I took in Costa Rica of some of the coffee plantations, some of the coffee plants that are there. Of course, you go there, they'll want to sell you the coffee. You can take it home with you, have that special coffee for yourself. Now, another product that's going to be very large product in the New World, especially in the Caribbean, is is the honey that's produced without bees. That's the way it was described. And that's sugar cane. Sugar cane, its origins can be traced back to India and Southeast Asia. But we see then, we know that the ancient Persians and Greeks knew about it. It was not cultivated in large numbers, but they knew about it because it was a tropical plant that's related to the grass family. It grows in large reeds that grow up, say, 20 feet high. It's a tropical plant. Christopher Columbus first brought sugarcane in 1493 to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And it's been there ever since. And of course, all the other islands as well as spread out there and into that part of the world. So from it, of course, you take the cane, which you can see in that picture down at the bottom there. The cane comes, they have to, they squeeze it. They squeeze it. They run it through a big wheel, and press it out and squeeze out all the juice. And then that juice, sugarcane juice, is heated up. And eventually, if you heat it up enough, you can turn it into molasses. You can turn it into rum. And so you can take a big field of sugarcane, which, by the way, is very hard to plant, very hard to cut down, very hard to process. But you can take that labor-intensive crop, and you can then condense it down into sugar. You can condense it down into molasses. You can condense it down into rum. And the rum can then be shipped all over the world. And this is also what leads to the triangle of trade. Because to do this very hard work, they're going to use slaves, slave labor. It's very hot, it's very hard work, and the slaves will be coming from Africa. So here are just some pictures of sugarcane fields and of sugarcane processing back in the 1700s, 1800s. You see the sugarcane there and how high it grows. And so sugarcane is also another thing that's there. So here's just a sampling of what we've talked about. The vegetables, the onions, the pigs, the cows, the horses, the coffee, the wheat, the olives, and of course the sugarcane. These are all things that are now in the new world that were not there before, and they're going to forever change the economy and the life of the new world, having these new animals, these new plants, and this new way of doing things in the new world. Well, that's my presentation for you this evening. Are there any questions? Anybody have a question? Yes.
I thought the Turkish occupation of the Middle East was another reason that the Portuguese and the Spanish decided to go by water. Is
that is true. Yes. The whole middle route going through the Middle East was controlled by the Muslims, by primarily at this point the Turks. And so they are not going to easily allow any European to come in there and sort of take away their money. So you're not going to be able to go overland. And a lot of it was coming overland into the Middle East and then from there into Europe. But if you could bypass that, of course they had to go all the way around Africa to do it. And that was very difficult. And this is part of the reason, since the Portuguese had already started that process, that Columbus had the idea it would be shorter to actually go the other way, right? To go west to get east and then get to the spices and the other things that were there.